William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing
that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights. See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Me, Tom Arnold, I am very famous. I absolutely like, because it's very true. Like, I hadn't freaking heard of you until I sitting on a Friday night. This is how bad my life is. Listen, fucker, good luck. Good luck with your rebranding. Like anybody knew what the name was before. What was the name? Okay, who gives a shit? That's a good name because it's got your name in it. You can pretend you're humble. You say, I'm not famous. And, which you aren't. So you're just, I mean, anyway, but I hope you get famous doing this. Good luck to you.
But he's officially... Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company.
Deal.
Yeah.
So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
I never, you know what, with all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm gone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane. You're insane.
Well, hello, February. Where the hell did you just come from? Snuck up on me, all sneaky and quiet like. Can you believe that we are in the month of love? We are in February 2022. Already, I don't know, we're going to start seeing Halloween decorations and Thanksgiving and turkey trots. And okay, maybe we won't get that far ahead of ourselves. But it's hard to believe that it is February. And yet, here we are. Emmanuel is here. He says hello. And Glenn is attending I Am Not Famous in an almost self-driving car. Happy to be watching live. I love, Glenn, how you are actually watching the show in a Tesla, I assume. And basically the car is driving you while I'm entertaining you. Your hands are on the wheel. It feels somewhat safe. And I mean somewhat safe. But I'm glad that you are here as always. I am really glad that Shelly Palmer is here. Shelley is the CEO of the Palmer Group. When I say I'm not famous, but my next guest is, I mean it. Shelly Palmer is very famous. And I am not just saying that. But he will be with us in just a short while. Margaret Malloy will be with us tomorrow. And then Dr. Fred Moss on Thursday. We are not almost fully booked through February. We are fully booked through February, and we are now booking into March. And I am just super, super excited for just new conversations, new perspectives, new diverse backgrounds, people, opinions. That is what we do here on Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. We also like to give away certain things. Right, Mr. Mark Mansfeld? We like to give away an NFT every week. We like to give Jaffe coin. And for those of you that are new to the show, I have a creator coin, my own cryptocurrency called the Jaffe coin. That's what it looks like in the top right-hand corner. But really what you want to see is that QR code. The QR code will give you a free Jaffe coin right now. And as I often say, and what I often love to say, is that the QR code is only live while the show is live. So it is recognizing and rewarding live participation, live views, engagement. I'm sure Shelley's going to have something to say about that, because we haven't quite figured out, I think, in the television model, a way to reward live, live engagement, live viewers, etc. So if you subscribe to the show, bit.ly/subscribe to the show. If you join the Discord, there are wonderful things that await you in the Discord. But right now, you can just actually shine your phone at the QR code, get yourself some Jaffe coin, and get on with life. Right, Russell Eubanks? I see we've got a lot of the giraffe tower in the house. Mark Mansveld says perfectly pronounced. Dankjewel, dankjewel. Gaat het goed met jou? Ja, gaat het goed met mij? Dank je. Dankjewel is, I don't know, I got a little carried away with myself. But let's move on, shall we? Just a little sneak preview. This Friday, we've got Evan Mendoza. He is an actual player for the St. Louis Cardinals. He also is the founder of an NFT collection called the Diamond Dogs. And on NFT Fridays, we like to bring out, we answer the question, who let the dogs out? Now we know who let the dogs out. Evan Mendoza let the dogs out, and he will be on Friday to talk about his vision, his roadmap, the future of the project, the future of NFTs. And if that is not enough, if you still are not tired of me, if you miss the video show, you can also listen to us in audio on the Marketing Podcast Network. Look for it wherever ears are sold. But now it's time to get into our seated soliloquy. And, it is one, of course, that is inspired by my guest, by Shelly Palmer. I didn't know what to call it initially. I thought maybe I would call it something like sight plus sound plus motion, but we will use our dance pop music. And instead we will call it Video Killed the Social Audio Star. And of course, the egg timer has begun. Now, I'm particularly thrilled because I have an OG in the house. This is an opportunity for me to mention and show my first book, my baby, my oldest, my firstborn, Life After the 30-Second Spot, where I said the 30-second spot in its existing form is either dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness. The point that I made then and the point that I still make now is that it's not about television. It's about video. It's about sight, sound, and motion. It is still the richest form of communication. Now, when you bring in the internet, as I did when I left the corporate world some 20 years ago, I said, wait a second, there's a fourth dimension. Sight plus sound plus motion plus interactivity. We now have a much richer, a fourth dimension in which to be able to engage, to communicate. Interactive television, enhanced television. We're still waiting to see the promise and the potential live up to those expectations. But I digress. We all know the phrase, video killed the radio star, right? When television came along, what did it do to radio? What did it do to a medium that was dominant before? In many respects, it did. But here we are now dealing with a different kind of radio. Not internet radio, not even podcasting. Sorry, Joe Rogan. But social audio, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces. So will video kill the social audio star, or will social audio kill the streaming video not famous star? Well, I hope not. And maybe there's a place for both. But one thing that I have learned in my career is that new does not necessarily replace old. It's never really about cannibalization. It's really about the ability to create a buffet, lay a table with a different set of tools, giving consumers more of a choice, more options to consume, to engage, to connect, to interact. So I don't know whether in fact video, streaming video, television will kill anything anymore. But I do know that in the Web3 world, it's not so much about competition anymore as it is about cooperation, collaboration, and being able to find your tribe, your home, your community in this crazy, ever-changing world in which we live. And that, the timer is up. It is now time to get into the main event. And of course, we're talking about Shelly Palmer. Now, I'm going to read to you. Normally, I would say I try and find a smaller bio, but I got to read everything to you. It's very hard to basically cut it down. And so I won't cut it down. I will read to you unless we get to 2 p.m. in 49 minutes and the time is up. I'm just kidding. That is not going to happen. But let me tell you about Shelly. Shelly Palmer is the Professor of Advanced Media and Residence at Syracuse University's Cy Newhouse School of Public Communication and the CEO of the Palmer Group, a consulting practice that helps Fortune 500 companies with technology, media, and marketing. Named LinkedIn's top voice in technology, he covers tech and business for Good Day New York, writes a weekly column for Adweek, and is a regular commentator on CNN and CNBC. He's the co-host of the award-winning podcast Tech Stream with Shelly Palmer and Seth Everett, and he hosts the Shelly Palmer Crypto Wednesday live stream. Shelly is a prolific author. Along with his daily newsletter, his books include the Amazon #1 bestseller Blockchain, Cryptocurrency, NFTs, and Smart Contracts, an executive guide to the world of decentralized finance, and Television Disrupted, the transition from network to networked television, the seminal book about the technological, economic, and sociological forces that have changed everything about the business of television. Overcoming the digital divide, how to use social media and digital tools to reinvent yourself and your career, and last but not least, digital wisdom, thought leadership for a connected world. Now we get to have thought leadership in a connected world. Let's connect to him. Mr. Shelly Palmer, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
It is great to have you. And now you can see what happens when you are a production studio of one. Sometimes things go right and sometimes they don't. I'm sure you could spot the mistakes.
It's all good.
So welcome. Shelly, I've been watching you and learning from you for a while. And I have to, and I was thinking to myself, should I ask him this question in the green room? And I decided, no, I'm going to ask it to him live on the air, which is, we haven't met before, right? No, I didn't think so. And my second question, and there is no wrong answer, there's only a right answer, which is, had you ever heard of me before?
Well, you're not famous.
Exactly. That's the right answer. That's what I had in the can in case. But, you know, we obviously share so much in common with respect to television, whether it's being on television, wanting to be on television, understanding the television. You know, let's start there. You know, when I wrote Life After, it was, you know, the 30-second spot in its existing form, right? Without innovating, without changing, without networked, you know, the networked model was either dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness. And so many people would criticize me and they'd say, but Joe, the Super Bowl is still alive and kicking. You know, the Super Bowl, the 30-second spot is now $6 million. News of its demise is greatly exaggerated. And I had my answer, but nobody cares about my answer. What is your answer to the state of television, the state of the 30-second spot, at least as we know it in the, you know, the flat screen plasma type of environment?
It's a really easy question to answer. As goes football, so goes television. It's that simple. And it's always been that way. They've just signed the contract that's going to go another 10 years to 2031, I think, is the end of that contract. Amazon's got some of it. NFL Sunday Ticket is going to at some point come off of DirecTV and get divvied up, cut up non-exclusively, maybe end up back in DirecTV. But as goes football, so goes broadcast television. It's the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 show on TV. There are about 45 days of television a year that matter, and the rest are just also ran. Free is very pro-consumer, and your friends who told you that the Super Bowl is $6 million, the 30-second spot's far from dead, missed the point. It's supply and demand. So what drives broadcast television is velocity at retail and the awareness that it is able to bring even to an ever diminishingly smaller audience. So people get paid predominantly on Fridays, and Thursday night between 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 30 seconds, the kids are in bed. You have a glass of wine, you're sitting with your family or your friends, yourself, and you're watching television if that's what you do. And that is incredibly valuable because you are going to give recency and availability to whatever brands are going to advertise inside that commercial pod. That'll be taken into the supermarket or the bodega the next day. And at the zero moment of truth, when someone is about to fill up their shopping basket with money they just got paid to use for the rest of the week, that is going to drive velocity at retail. It's one of the best awareness mediums there are. Now, the reason it's still so expensive is that supply and demand is always the rule of the world. So yeah, there's a smaller television audience than ever before. It's maybe 8% a year are falling off, whether they're cutting the cord or they have new behaviors. TikTok is now the number 1 website in the world. It surpassed Google. So TikTok is more popular than Google. It's way more popular than any television show or network could ever hope to be. But the supply of reach television as an awareness tool, if awareness solves your problem, TV still gives you the largest number of people for the smallest number of dollars. And that is going to be true until it isn't true. And when it is no longer true, then the 30-second spot will not be dead. TV will be dead. But until that's true, everybody's going to be just fine. They will charge more for less and they will get more for less. And the NFL believes that because the NFL is committed to broadcast television through the end of the decade. So TV's fine. It's not fine if you're an advertiser. If you're an advertiser, it's going to get harder and harder to reach an audience that you care about. We did an analysis for one of our clients 2 years ago that comes to mind immediately. It was a client that sold consumer packaged goods. Candies were mostly what they did. And their audience, the target persona for their advertising was women, broadly 1849, but mostly women 1834. It was young women and young moms or young shoppers who were female. Those are not heavy TV users even then 2 years ago, far less today than 2 years ago because of the pandemic and behavior changes. They could have spent $450 million on TV and not reached 20% of the audience. And what would have happened would have been interesting. The heavy TV users who are not in the demo would have seen their ads 15, 20, 30 times. The light TV users who were in the demo, the young women 18 to 34, 1.5 times, maybe 2 times the incredible waste of sending your ad without being able to cap it to someone who just doesn't want to see it anymore, gets totally sick and tired of it. There was no way around it because there's no frequency capping on broadcast television. Now, this has changed a little bit in streaming, but streaming, traditional television, meaning with commercial pods, free over-the-air TV just served on the public internet, doesn't quite have the reach of broadcast television. It has reach, but not the same. And certainly targeted videos like you would get on a YouTube, like you would get on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. These have much better targeting capabilities, but the reach by definition is smaller. So if you're selling a mass market product, like something you'd see in a supermarket, in a classic 20,000 foot supermarket, something in the inner aisles, paper towels or toilet tissue or laundry detergent or canned food of some kind, boring stuff in the middle of the supermarket. If that's what you're trying to drive velocity for, targeted advertising is really, really expensive. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, the 30-second spot is not dead in any way. What's dying is advertisers' ability to leverage that one single distribution channel, broadcast television, and drive velocity at retail. And TV keeps raising the prices for less audience, and brands are just reeling under the pressure. I'm expecting sometime before the end of the decade, some pushback, and we'll see how this all goes. But as of today, Super Bowl is going to be sold out. The Olympics may have a little bit of trouble, but at the end of the day, I'm not having a telethon for anyone in the TV business this week. It's not a growth business, but it's far from dying.
There's so much I could respond to. I love that. I just, in fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the applause. The studio audience just love that. I love the telethon idea. The Jerry Lewis plea to save
the TV business, yeah.
Save the whales and save the executives, the network executives. You know, if I work backwards and kind of unpack what you said, it's almost this idea that the 30-second spot isn't dead, but maybe the business model, the consumer journey is changing. And you said something right at the beginning, which is television will die before the 30-second spot dies. And I think when you kind of like then work your way back and understand that it is Lee Clow who said the problem isn't advertising, it's bad advertising. I always disagreed with that statement because I was like, no, the problem is advertising because the good advertising doesn't see the light of day because of all the noise, because people are skipping, because of everything. But there's an older quote that I found for you. It is one of my favorite quotes, and so it's very special for me to share it with anyone. And this is your quote, and I'm sure you know exactly who said it. Television, a medium so-called because it's neither rare nor well done. Do you know who said that?
No.
He has not been on the show. I'm pretty sure he's not live. But that was Ernie Kovacs. From
Ernie Kovacs. Sure. Wow. That's the earliest days of TV. Look, consumer behaviors have changed very dramatically, and the pandemic has accelerated those behavior changes. How we consume media is absolutely nothing like how we consume media pre-pandemic, which means that everyone who is an advertising target, which we all are, whatever I over-indexed on 24 months ago, I don't necessarily over-index on today. So maybe somebody over-indexed on designer shoes or designer clothing or luxury cars or sports cars or something, I don't know, healthy food, whatever you over-indexed on, you may or may not still over-index on that. We also have a lot of different approaches to what we used to call a media mix was traditionally print, radio, and broadcast television, and everything else was fill-in. So what's a newspaper? I have no idea. What's a magazine? I have no idea. I don't think if they exist in the smallest form factors now with the smallest distribution. Content is commoditized. Everyone's got a paywall model going on. There's the most magnificent video content available since I began in the TV business, between Netflix and Disney Plus and Apple and just literally every PBS. It doesn't matter where you go. We're in the platinum era of television production or video production. So many wonderful shows, so much to watch. And we're training people that the best experience you can get is over the top, meaning through your internet connection onto a high resolution television, HD, minimally 4K, maximally a giant screen, 65, 75 inches if you can afford it, good sound system. You can't get that quality product from your cable company. Very few cable channels are available in 4K, and very few cable systems provide 4K content. So for the best experience, you're going to be on Netflix, on Disney, on Apple, on Hulu, on HBO Max. You're not going to be in a broadcast television environment, which means you are not forced in any way to watch a television commercial. The TV commercial experience is unfortunate. We're seeing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-minute commercial pods. But again, free is very pro-consumer. It's a compelling value proposition. I get to watch the content for free. DVRs are in use everywhere. Some people skip commercials, some people don't. There's a funny stat I saw last week. There's a nostalgia channel on a cable system in Chicago, and one of our clients wanted to advertise on it, and the salesperson had a deck, and in the deck it said that reruns of I Love Lucy, and that was the vintage, the 50s and 60s TV that they were running, commercials got more attention because everyone watching the channel already knows every word of every show. It's on for comfort only, and the commercials are the new content. And I started to laugh out loud, and I'm like, you know what? That's the first honest thing I've heard, because I do know every word of every Honeymooners episode. I do know every word of every I Love Lucy episode. But if I saw a commercial on there that was targeted at me, I would kind of perk up and go, "What's that?" Because it would be the only thing I didn't know on the channel. So that was a really funny kind of sales deck. But you know what? It's the most exciting time ever. I don't, business models are changing, consumer behaviors are changing faster maybe than ever before. We're not so concerned about digital transformation now as we are adapting to the accelerated pace of change. I think that transformation is at the digital transformation, consumer behavior changes. This is now what's happening, and efficiency is now table stakes. What isn't table stakes, where you really have to work hard now, is getting your organizations to adapt, and your businesses have to be able to adapt to the consumer behavior changes and the technology changes, which that's the fun and exciting part. I got to tell you, I think it's more fun now. Business is more fun now than it's been the last 25 years. Just awesome.
I certainly feel it as well. And we're going to talk Web3. We're going to talk a little bit of metaverse as it comes up, and it might be a very interesting way to revisit the idea of what does the brand or the advertising model look like in this new space. But before we do that, we'll take a little step back and so Shelley, this is how I know you. I know you from television as the tech. I love, by the way, that it's like Shelly Palmer, tech expert. It's like, oh, you're the one. It's like, sometimes you'll see someone on television and it'll be like, Shelly Palmer, concerned neighbor. So you're the concerned neighbor, but you're also, I guess, an expert on smart tech and spying so you're a spying expert, you're a security expert. It's worth saying that today is Change Your Password Day. So I'm hoping that your password is not any of those that are in front of you right now. But we take a little bit of a step back here, and we like to find out about our guests in a little segment here called Fun Facts, where we basically go deep. We take these deep dives into their dark, sordid past, and we find out all these things that the paying public out there does not know. For example, that you are a black belt in Taekwondo, which, as the old saying goes, what do you call someone who's a black belt in Taekwondo?
Go ahead.
Sir. So Sir Shelly Palmer. So Shelley, if ever I'm at CES, and someone's coming for me, will you be my wingman? Will you protect me?
So yeah, it is a little known fact. I actually have a black belt in 2 different martial arts. I started as a kid in Taekwondo and studied from age about 13 years old till I was about 21, 22 when I moved to Manhattan. And then the dojo that I belonged to, the sensei retired, and I didn't practice, and I got really busy in my job. And so I was practicing with some friends and training with some friends. And then I stopped and gained a lot of weight, to tell you the truth, and felt really terrible about myself. And right across from J. Walter Thompson, right across from 466 Lexington Avenue, there was a little Okinawan Shorin-ryu dojo. And I kept passing it. I thought, man, I'll walk in there one day. And I started again as a white belt in my late 20s in Okinawan Shorin-ryu, and then worked my way through up to a first-time black belt in Okinawan Shorin-ryu. So Japanese art rather than Korean. But I've always liked the discipline. Always liked the discipline. It's it's good to get out of the house, and it's good to one of the things I'll tell you about martial arts training is you can't be thinking about anything else other than what you're doing. It does demand your complete concentration. So anything that'll take your mind off of the crazy world we live in, I gotta give big thumbs up to. So yeah, it's not so much for self-defense as it is just mind, body, and spirit, and keeping yourself in good physical shape. And yeah, there's a benefit of being able to throw a punch and take a punch, and throw a kick and take a kick. But I don't know that that's the magic of this at all. So, but yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I never talk about it. I'm not quite sure how you found out. Somebody must have told you, because it's not something I ever talk about.
As I said, we have an unbelievable production studio and research studio.
I guess
this is the creator economy, economy of one. Now we have one more little tidbit to share. But you know what I love about this segment, honestly, is that in every single time I've done it across 325 guests, there's always an insight that transcends, the ridiculous into the sublime. And so what I picked up from your story was the idea of going from black belt to white belt and then back to black belt. And I was thinking there's something to be said when we think about our business, about unlearning, about starting again, in this great resignation. I mean, it's so rich, that insight, in terms of being able to go and say, I was a teacher in maybe brand management, but now I'm a student at DAOs or decentralized control or whatever the case may be. That's what
very perceptive of you, because that is the story of that is my approach to everything, by the way. That is play with live ammo and understand that you must first find yourself a teacher. The arrogance of thinking is the most dangerous thing in the world. I can't imagine anything more dangerous than thinking that you understand something. Maybe if you can teach it, you understand a little bit. The reason that I'm teaching at Newhouse School, the reason that I do the kind of work I do, is that there are things in the universe I want to understand deeply personally. And the only way that you can understand something is if you can teach it to somebody else. So a lot of my practice, a lot of our business practice at the Palmer Group is executive education. It's not that we have a yearning desire to educate the whole world, although that's a noble cause. And I love that people do have that burning desire. My burning desire is a lot more selfish in that I want to make sure I understand what I'm talking about well enough to explain it to somebody else. And that's hard. And it's I've been a lifelong student, and it's funny that you picked up on that, going back to a white belt. They didn't want me to, because the styles are, of all the Japanese karate styles, Okinawan Shorin-ryu probably is closer to Taekwondo than any of the others. Some of the basic forms, the basic katas are the same or very similar. The difference of having your hand this way as opposed to this way when you're throwing a knife. I mean, very, very similar. And I was like, no, I have too much respect for what you guys are doing here. And I'm not going to walk in here and say I know anything. And I'm certainly not qualified to teach. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on a white belt and I'm going to go through the whole process. And however fast you give promotions every 6 months, so I can wait. Like, I'm not in a hurry. I'm here to train, and I'm here to learn, and I'm here to understand. I'm not here to demonstrate that I know something that someone else doesn't. And I treat my business that way too. So it's interesting you picked up on that. I don't generally articulate it that way, but it is one of the cultural theses of the Palmer Group, which is lifelong students first. Know what you don't know and try to figure it out.
One of the things I learned when I went through my bridge program to teach as well, is that the perfect teacher is a student and the perfect student is a teacher. Yeah. And so that lifelong learning really, it hits home. Russell Eubank says, what a great motivation to teach. It is, no one is retiring on their teacher's salary, but it is the ultimate noble profession, for
Agreed.
sure. Now,
Agreed.
Shelley, we know that when it comes to live ammo, that might be something you take, you can respond to quite literally. But here is the other thing we found, is that you're actually an award-winning composer, producer. And we actually have a photograph of you in the Hall of Fame with some of your other colleagues, apparently. So again, I mean, how many people even knew that as well? I mean, I'm not really sure what's going on there with the hair. But tell us about this part of your life, because now there's another creative, another creator component.
Well, my mother and father met at Juilliard, and they were music educators in the New York City public school system, and they owned music stores. So they were both music educators, and they owned a music store, a series of music stores ultimately. And I grew up working in the retail shop with my dad and with my mom. And I was very lucky early on to not only have a wonderful music education from my parents, but the household was very musical. And I got a few lucky DNA gifts along the way. So I was a member of Local 802. I think I joined when I was 12 years old. My dad drove me down to the Union Hall to get me into the Musicians Union. I started writing at a very, very early age. And when I went to NYU Film School, and in my senior year at NYU, I was offered to go to AFI in the West Coast, the American Film Institute's 2-year program. And right when I was about to accept that, I ran into a guy named Don Elliott. He's passed away now. Very famous jazz musician, mellophone player, vibraphone player, great singer. He owned a jingle company, Don Elliott Productions. And I ran into him. He was selling a piece of equipment that I wanted, a synthesizer, an ARP Odyssey, oddly enough. This is probably in 77 or 78. And I was in love with this thing, and he wanted $400 for it. And I said, you don't mind if I check it out? I was in his studio, and I just want to make sure it works before I give you the cash. And he said, sure. And he heard me play it I just ran it through its paces. And he said to me, well, it's not for sale. And I'm like, what? But I came here. It was in the paper. He says, no. You can have it, but you're working for me now. And I've got a session for you tomorrow. You can pick it up. We're doing a Mercedes-Benz commercial tomorrow at Electric Lady Studios, and just be there at noon. I was like, okay. So I ended up working for Don as a writer rep, $100 a week. You make a bunch of phone calls. You got to do every demo you brought in. You work as a side man and working musician on the stuff that they were doing. I just got sucked into the music business, and one thing led to another. I was going to go off and be a TV director. That's what my degree is in at NYU. That's what I was planning to do. But I had been playing full time. I'd been playing 12 hours a day for my whole life. I'd never not been playing music. So it made sense to me. So that's what I did. And at a certain point, Don and I parted ways, and I opened up my own music production company, which then evolved into, we were doing a lot of technology. We were doing a lot of electronic music. And so we built the first tapeless audio recording studio that did a commercial project. In 1986, it went online, April of 1986, called Creative Audio Recording Services. And we did patented all kinds of technology for advertising and for music production and video production, and just got deep into the tech side of creative. And all of it was to just build more efficient production facilities for myself. We were very busy. We were very lucky to be very busy. And I think if I took the job right now, I would probably do the music for my 5,000th television commercial sometime this year. I've written a lot of TV commercials. I've directed and produced a lot, but I've written an inordinately large amount of music for TV commercials and TV themes also. Spin City, Regis and Kathy Lee, which now is Kelly and Ryan, but I wrote that theme's been on the air for 25 years. CBS News theme. I have hundreds of news themes and television themes on the air, and countless number of TV commercials. We don't talk about it because it's not something that we need to talk about.
Wow.
It's not.
We just learned another fun fact about you.
But I got to tell you though, what's interesting is where I learned about advertising was music is the last thing anyone ever does in a TV commercial. And great music has saved a lot of bad pictures. And to be fair, great pictures have saved a lot of bad music. Nothing's ever saved a bad idea. But when you are in a room and the director or the ad executive says, this isn't funny enough, make it funny, or this is too funny, calm it down, and you are the last thing that happens, you learn a lot about the power of emotion and emotional communication and what nonverbal communication, what you can do with music. But the thing I learned sitting through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of audio productions and post-production mixes was listening to some of the world's best ad executives talk to their clients about what the spots were there for, what they were doing, listening to whether the spot accomplished the brand brief or didn't accomplish the brand brief. It was literally like getting a PhD in advertising. You have Jerry Delafamino or Ron Travisano sitting in the back of the studio talking to their client about why this matches the brief or doesn't match the brief, or Mary Wells Lawrence from Wells Rich Green. There were like some of the Jim Weller, I go Hal Riney. I mean, some of the best, most genius advertising people in the world would sit there, and you'd listen to or they'd come in and they would give you some direction about, look, this is not quite working, and here's what we're trying to accomplish, and this is why. And then they tell you why. You say, okay. it's not exactly musically right, but I get where you're going. Let me see if I can understand how to do this. And just learning to think that way, it was a gift. It was for a composer, it was an amazing gift. For someone who is ultimately going to be in this world of advanced communication, of a world which is really where we live, right? We're living in this world of empowered consumers, and the way that we went from our media being one to many, where we're just broadcasting out and hoping someone's going to see it, to now we have programmable media where it finds you. Like now your media finds you. This is like an amazing shift. It's a complete transition. And I felt like I was sitting in the room where the philosophy of how that was going to happen and why was taught to me by people who were really experienced and really knowledgeable. It was a great gift and an amazing honor to be in that business at that time, because it's hard to find people that are that knowledgeable, that are willing to share that much knowledge. It's hard to put yourself in a position now where you're 6 hours in a room with somebody at that level, and they're talking to you or their client about what they were trying to accomplish and helping you understand it. I was like going to school every day. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question about whether we have those Bill Bernbachs, those David Ogilvies left, visionaries that can see the future, or that can help their clients into the future. What a great segue to talk about CES, in the sense that this, the Consumer Electronics Show, what began as generally a place for the Panasonics and the Sonys and the Samsungs of the world to show their new televisions. I remember the screens just kept on getting bigger, and then they got thinner, and then they got curvier, and then they became 3D screens. Now we're hearing that NFTs will be built into them. But then, of course, the last 2 years, everything changes. And now we have to kind of ask ourselves whether this will be the new trade show or the new CES, etc., in terms of how we innovate. I wonder if you could synthesize this a little bit for us, not just in terms of the emergence, the arrival of Web3, the metaverse, but there was something in your story that struck me, Shelley, which is building tech, building solutions to solve real problems. And I wonder, on one level, whether we're seeing televisions and tech and electronics actually solving problems, and which does not count as trying to hit your quarterly earnings, right? That counts as real consumer problems. So there's so much in there. I'll let you pick from the buffet, whatever, from the smorgasbord, whatever you want, whether you want to talk about the future of trade shows, the future of the actual television.
I don't think trade shows have, I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen. There's a real reason to have a trade show. People are social animals. We like to get together and hang out. The value of a CES for me is the clients from Korea and friends from Barcelona and friends from South Africa and friends are like, they're all in Las Vegas for a week, and you're saving thousands of dollars of plane tickets and months of travel. So that's why you get together, and you see people that you know and love and want to talk to and can do business with. I don't think that's going to change. Can you do it virtually? Yeah, there'll be some virtual stuff. Will it be hybrid going forward? Yes, it'll be hybrid going forward. So time will tell. I'm hoping that the pendulum will swing back. Right now, everything is hybrid ultimately. And I think hybrid's here to stay. The question is, I can't wait to go have a beer with some people and just hang out. So I think everybody feels that way, and we'll get there. The big lesson of CES this year wasn't about the technology. Everything was extraordinary use of ordinary technology. The thing that was interesting at CES this year for me probably wasn't at CES so much as about CES. And that is, all the most interesting stuff that I saw was an amalgam of commoditized tools, but brilliantly put together to tell a story and solve a problem. So it was, using data to craft tangible outcomes. So I might have a sensor and a camera and a screen and a projector, and all of a sudden I've got a way to build a game for 10-year-olds or 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds to play with their grandparents remotely. That's interesting. You see a projector, but they decide to put it in a different form factor, stick an Edison-based bulb power source on the end of it, and all of a sudden I can screw it into a light socket. It's wireless. Got a 100-inch TV screen on anything I can project on. It's like they're just interesting. None of these things were extraordinary in the tech. They were extraordinary in the business models and the thought process and the idea that someone sat down and said, you know what? I fully understand the story I want to tell about this product. I fully understand the problem set I'm going to solve. I fully understand how I'm going to empower a consumer, and these are the tools I'm going to use to do it. And that was everywhere at CES, whether it was robotics, whether it was screens, whether it was smart home, it didn't matter, and whether it was electric vehicles, self-driving. Every place you looked, you saw the thought process, and you saw this tremendous storytelling. And where it failed, and where it resonated extremely well. So I think that was a big change, and I was excited about it, to tell you the truth. This is a very exciting CES for us, and I'm looking forward to an in-person version of it next year. Hopefully the pandemic will abate and we will all be able to get together. But from a consumer technology perspective, the creator class is demanded, and they're getting the tools they need to do what we're doing now. And the influencers are getting what they need, and the brands are getting what they need. And if there's a lesson out of CES this year, it's that everyone is both a media company and a production studio. Everybody, every person, every company. And the bar has been highly raised. You're going to want to have a very good looking picture, because people know they're going to have good screens to watch you on. So you want to have well exposed, color balanced video. And if you can't, make sure you tell a great story, because a great story will get past a lot of the technological hurdles that some people just can't seem to get past.
Absolutely love that insight. It made me think of another quote. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man, or maybe South by Southwest in Austin will be that, better than he was before. But that's what I took away from you, Shelley, which is we've got, instead of trying to make it curvier and thinner and bigger, we actually have what we need in order to solve real problems. And maybe if I could reframe it, it would be the lesson is to take a step back during the great pause in order to take a giant leap forward.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Look, I'm not saying that innovation, people always look at CES, they're always looking for the bright new shiny object. Oh, what was the biggest thing at the show? The biggest thing at the show was that people are solving problems with ordinary technology, and they're solving them brilliantly. That was the biggest thing at the show. And it's not limited to the technologically elite or the very rich. It's limited to those who think about production and communication first, think about the story they're trying to tell and the problem they're trying to solve first, and then find the technology to do it with. And really, it was empowered by a bunch of tiny incremental changes. What you and I would call routine innovation, not something disruptive and groundbreaking where everybody goes, wow, did you see that? No, this isn't like your own pocket spaceship. This isn't, teleportation from Star Trek. It's a way, however, for us to tell a story about our brand. It's a way for us to communicate this idea that we have, that we want you to share. I want to share with you this musical idea, this story idea, this visual idea, this graphic idea. I want to share it with you, and here are the tools I'm going to use to do that. So little incremental changes, slightly better screen, you said it, right? Slightly thinner, slightly bigger, slightly curvier, slightly. But if you add those up, they compound, right? These tiny little incremental changes year after year after year. What do we find? Better battery life. Okay, now I can use my handheld longer. Better screen. Well, now I can see finer detail. Better color. Okay, I can experience a wider color gamut and a higher dynamic range. This feels more lifelike to me, and I get a deeper connection with the content. Like any one of those things by themselves is meaningless, but when you compound those incremental innovations every year and across every technology, it really is profound. And it's sad that people are always looking for like some giant thing. Oh, wow, did you see the flying car? It's like, yeah, but no one's using a flying car. Did you see the way I'm able now to take a mirrorless camera and make my webcam look like I'm in a TV studio? Oh, wait, you can do that? Yeah, I'm doing it right now. Does your webcam look like this? Not you, but just person who's listening. And the answer is it doesn't, but it could. It could. You could look like this. This is nothing fancy here. That's not a fake background behind me. This is a background. I'm in my office. So and I'm not using the blur filter. How is that working? And so these are tiny little things, but they make a big thing when you want them to. And that was the lesson at CES, and it was a good lesson, and I don't think it should be lost on anyone.
It reminds me of a commercial that I didn't work on this, but I was on the brand account at Ogilvy on IBM. and and it has a young guy, a young buck, if you will, on the laptop, and he calls his silver-haired boss over, and he says, "Hey, I'm working on our website and our logo. We can have the spinning logo, and you see like, or it could be like the fiery one, and you see like all the flames and all the bells and whistles." And the wise boss turns around and goes, "You know what would be game changing is if we could streamline and integrate our supply chain, if we could catalog and put our entire inventory online and sell to people directly. Well, that would just and with perfect inventory and auditing and customer service." And he goes through the whole thing. He goes, "Well, that would change everything." And the young guy looks up and he goes, "I don't know how to do that." And it was just it was the gap between the hype and the hope. So I love that. Well, so I guess the question then is where does Web3 fit into it, right? Is Web3 the great hope, the great hype, the great misdirection, the salvation of advertising? You've written this book, and I'm going to make sure that people that are watching have a link to buy it on Amazon. The book is called Blockchain, Cryptocurrency, NFTs, and Smart Contracts, an executive guide to the world of decentralized finance. So, I'll set it up with a softball. Is Web3 the next big thing, Shelley?
Maybe. It's unclear. What is clear is that we are on the cusp of the decentralization of finance, and there's going to be a little bit of a war between governments and normal people about it. I think about this the same way I think about what happened to information technology in the early 80s. My Apple II Plus showed up, and a few years later, my IBM PC showed up. It democratized information and computing that allows us to do what we're doing right now. We're all on the grandchild of those computers watching right now. What if there was no bank? What if you were the bank? What if you could share in the value you create? What if your ID was self-sovereign, or your decentralized ID was yours? What if you controlled the data that the data elite got from you, and you were the one who took that store of value and allowed others to use it? So that's the promise of Web3. Are we going to get there? Some people are talking about the metaverse, and is that cartoon characters in a cartoon world, or is it something as boring as your IBM commercial, which is I've got a decentralized ID and it's and some biometrics, and I walk up to the door of a bar, and the bar scans the biometric and checks the blockchain, realizes the only piece of data it's allowed to get is my age. It's certified that I'm above the age of 21 years old. That is the only data point the state of New York needs to open that bar door, and in I go. So now I no longer have to hand a bouncer my driver's license, which has my picture, my address, and my driver's license number. That bouncer is not entitled to that information, but there's no other way for me to communicate my ID without it now. But I could in a decentralized Web3 based world where I had control of my data. So there are some promises of Web3, and then there's also some hype around it. I think we're likely to see, and the biggest problem that we have with it is this concept of centralization versus decentralization. You have an NFT like Top Shot, the NBA Top Shot NFT. Well, the central authority is the NBA, and the community of passion is around basketball. I don't really need a trustless environment because I trust the NBA and I'm passionate about basketball. But if I went to sell that NFT in an open market and I didn't know who bought it, that is a trustless transaction. And so a decentralized environment would be good for that, because that way I could have the terms and conditions of my smart contract met, and I'd know that I would get my remuneration in crypto without having to know who was buying. So that's like a Web 2.5. It's a little bit of Web 3 and a little bit of Web 2, kind of in the, kind of combined. Where do we need central authorities? Where will we abide a central authority like a Facebook or like an Amazon or a Netflix or a Google, who has every ounce of data ever? We call them walled gardens for a reason. They're walled and they hold on to the data. And where are we going to need things that are fully decentralized? And I don't think there's a clear understanding of exactly who's who and what's what. If Mark Zuckerberg makes a metaverse, is that Web3? No, it's Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. If Mark Zuckerberg is part of a larger metaverse, if he's part of a tool set that allows you to traverse between him and Amazon and Google and Snap and Twitter, okay, wait, then maybe that is a real metaverse. It's hard to say how this is going to go. What I do know, though, is that if I were to democratize finance the same way I democratized information, the world would change. Could you have imagined 40 years ago what the IBM PC or the Apple II Plus would empower us to do? Today, think about, if I was the bank, the security guard, the treasurer, the investment committee, and I wanted to give out loans and there was no one to go see about it, I just loan people money. And if I wanted to create my own financial marketplace, I could do that. What might happen if ordinary people got as creative with their finances as they do with their information technology, sight, sound, and motion? That, I believe, is the promise of Web3. How we'll realize it, it's very early days. And Blockchain, the book, is about it. In fact, we have I'm not going to write another book about this, even though it's a bestseller. What I'm doing instead is, depending on when this airs, sometime mid-February, we're launching Met Academy. It's the word Met, M-E-T, and the word Academy, Met Academy. Yeah, metacademy.xyz. Now, Met Academy is going to be my next book, but the coolest part about it is it will be a dynamic learning environment. So you'll go there. We'll teach you how to set up a crypto wallet, how to get test ETH out of a faucet, how to mint and generate your own NFTs, how to put them in a marketplace, all with test currency. So it's completely risk-free. It's completely free of charge. It's just for education. We're going to go all the way down. What's a DAO? How do you govern a DAO? What's an NFT? What are tokenomics? How do you mint? I know that you've got your own coin. So how do you mint or mine those? If you launch a currency, is it a fair launch or is it pre-mined? If you launch an NFT, how are you going to do the foundational principles of your decentralized project? What is decentralization? What is centralization? How do you interact with these things? What's a multi-signature wallet? I go on forever. Ton of jargon, ton of new things to learn, all going to be free and risk-free. And the goal of this is so that I can keep it dynamically updated every single day. It can be the most up-to-date information, because as much as I loved writing this book, and much of the information in this book will be in Met Academy, it's impossible to keep a printed book up to date, but we can keep a dynamic Web2/Web3 website up to date every day. And that's our goal. So please visit metacademy.xyz and sign up. We'll notify you when it's there. And again, it'll always be free of charge. In fact, you will actually, it's an earn while you learn model, an engage to earn model. So you'll get badges and real world NFTs at Met Academy for going through the training, which will get you into live events that we put on for free and stuff that we'd ordinarily charge for. So you're creating value for yourself and in the form of the education, and value for us because we gave you the education. And then you're going to get some real world value in the form of the NFTs that we're giving away based on your engagement. So we're teaching a lot about how to think that through for executives. And I hope people will take advantage of it. It's a different model for us, right? It's sort of the Peter Diamandis abundance model. You just give away stuff and hope that the karma police take care of you. So we're hoping that people get some good value out of metacademy.xyz and come back and ask us and engage us for the things that we actually do charge money for later in the process.
And that's from blockchain to air horn to mic drop, not the Pepsi mic drop, which is another story for another day. But I love it. And I have to ask you this question, Shelley, which is, first of all, I've already signed up. Second of all, I hope in this wonderful simulation, the gamification of Web3 education, if you will, that you're going to be doing some classic rug pulls and little DMs, slide into their DMs with a little, hey, bro, I got you on the whitelist. And the next thing you know, your wallet is completely drained. Make it real authentic, I think.
Trust me, I've been hacked. There's at shellypalmer.com. There's a kind of interesting chronicle of my MetaMask hack. We're gonna tell everybody how to avoid that in no uncertain terms.
Well, Jeff Wallman is here. He said, wow, great stuff today. Super interesting. I mean, you could just switch on Fox 5, or you could tap into the creator economy and hang out with us. My mom, shout out to my mom in South Africa who is watching, and not just a good friend of the show, but a correspondent of the show, Mr. Brian Fanzo, host of the popular NFT 365 podcast. said great insights. I absolutely loved it. And I also learned about a new company that is destined clearly for low depths, known as Mark Zuckerberg's Metaverse book, I guess, is the new one. I love that. It's not the Metaverse, it's Mark Zuckerberg's Metaverse. If you want to play in it, you can, or you can go and learn exactly how to thrive in the blockchain, earn while you learn in the Meta Academy. Did I get it right?
You did. Perfect in every way.
This has been Shelly Palmer. It has been an absolute treat. Guest number 325, and clearly the best guest that I've had since I started this. I do say that to everyone, though, with full disclosure. You can follow Shelly on the Twitter at Shelly Palmer. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. Again, just look for Shelly Palmer wherever thought leadership is common. I love that idea. Put it out into the universe, and certainly it will come back. Definitely, you want to check out Shelly's weekly Web3 Wednesday live streams on YouTube. I will be subscribing as soon as the show is done. Of course, by blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, and smart contracts, an executive guide to the world of decentralized finance. And finally, check out metaacademy.xyz, launching in the next few weeks. Learn to earn. That is the new mantra of Web 2.5 to Web 2.3. And with that, I will remind people that if you would like to listen to Learn to Earn, you can do that by subscribing to the show on the Marketing Podcast Network. Tomorrow, Margaret Malloy will be in the house. She is the global CMO of Siegel and Gale and the host of How CMOs Commit podcast. And there will be an after show. And there is nothing left to do at this point but to thank Shelley once again. And you know what? I'm not going to thank you, Shelley, but instead you're going to get thanked by, of course, Chuck Norris. And this is what Chuck had to say about you.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.